National Lottery Heritage Fund. My name's Mark Humphries. I'm an engagement manager for the Midlands and East. And today we're going to talk about the role of the National Lottery Heritage Fund. So this is my gang, so to speak. I work for the Midlands and East team as an officer. Engagement manager is my posh post. And as you can see, we cover East Midlands, West Midlands, and the east of England. So, quick quiz. You haven't got to write anything down or anything. It's just to see what you kind of know about us. You don't feel the need to write it down. So we're going to look at what and who we fund, our new Heritage 2033 strategy, our grant programs, project examples, activities, how to apply, not in depth, but an opportunity for questions. These will pop up every now and again, but we'll probably save it all till the end, unless there's any burning questions. And then please try and let Sean know, because I've not got my chat on, just so I can concentrate on the presentation. Okay, moving forward. So, quick quiz. Has everybody heard of us before? I'm hoping that you have. So, first question. Anybody know when the National Lottery opened? Is it 93, 95, or 94? Oh, Nicholas is in there. I am having pop-ups come up, so that's great stuff. Yes, we were born in 1994, so we just celebrated our 30th recently. And how much do you think we have awarded since 94? 2.2 billion, 4.9 billion, or 9.2 billion? And as you can guess, we're a bunch of show-offs. Yes, Emma, correct. It is 9.2 billion that we've a bit more often when we did this slide deck. So yeah, and it is 9.2 plus. Well done, Angela. That's bang on. It is. It's going out the door today as well. There's some more awards being made. How many projects do you think we've supported? 30,000, 52, or 41,000? Yeah. Yeah, you've clocked me. Yeah, we just very really proud of what we achieved. So we put the biggest numbers on his ass. So yeah, that's us, and it's an honour and it's an absolute privilege to be part of the team who have supported so many diverse projects over the years, and help. And my role is to support people on their way to applying and getting funding, hopefully. So, which of these are heritage? Do you think it's A, old buildings, B, nature, C, archives, D, parks, E, steam engines, or F, memories? I'll give you a quick 10 seconds. Anybody with any answers? Nicholas says all of them. Can't see what I can see. Connie's putting something on. Angela, all, yes. Yeah, that's true. Everybody, you've nailed us. We are very diverse in all the type of things that we can fund and we have funded. A lot of people think we're all, I think Sean's heard me say this catchphrase a million times. People think we're kings, queens, and castles, and that's just a minor bit. Quite often an expensive bit, but that's just a minor bit of the work that we actually support in the projects. So I'm not going to read everything out. Hopefully, the slide deck will be passed on to you in some form or another, or you can click back and obviously uh, watch the recording again. But these are the type of things we value, and we want you to pass on to future generations. So that's stories, cultural traditions, land and nature, which surprises people sometimes. But when you think about it, land and nature is our oldest form of heritage. It predates us, so it's a major thing for us. Parks and historic gardens, buildings, of course. What people think is our go-to. Collections, industrial, maritime, and transport heritage, loads more. And so we like to fund projects that connect people and communities at all levels throughout the whole of the UK. So who can apply? You need to be a not-for-profit organisation, a local authority, a public organisation, a faith organisation, and even private owners can apply for up to £250,000. But that's if your activities um, outweigh public benefit compared to private gain. So, the public are getting a lot more from it than you're going to achieve from it. So, any not-for-profit organisations include charities, CICs, CIOs, local authorities, schools and education institutions, as long as we're not taking over their role, which they are obliged to do. It has to be above and beyond, it has to be the gold standard that, takes it out of what they're supposed to do. Community involved groups and private owners, as I've mentioned, up to £250,000. It's important to check the criteria to ensure you're eligible. If you're not for profit, you need things like 2 or more trustees that are not related or living together. Obviously, you need a bank account, a governance document, articles of association, and you need an asset lock, and you need relevant organisation objectives. So we understand that you have got a remit to cover heritage as part of what you do. So our latest strategy is Heritage 2033. Now, this was informed by, we went out and over 4,000 stakeholders from the past years got in touch with us and responded to our questions on how they wanted us basically to form our direction of travel. And we've taken that on board. It's a 10-year vision, and we want to help the sector navigate through uncertainty. We also aim to help organisations still respond to the impact of COVID, recovery, climate change, and the cost of living crisis. So our approach to deliver Heritage 2033 is outlined on this slide. We continue with our open programmes, which are, our bread and butter, so that we can respond quickly to projects of all types and sizes, from £10,000 to 10 million. We've launched several strategic initiatives to allow us to work over longer periods and areas to tackle key issues. Our strategic initiatives are called Heritage Places, Landscape Connections, Nature Cities and Towns, and responding to heritage in need and other opportunities as they arise. We will continue and extend our partnership work into bringing capacity and expertise as required to ensure that we will have maximum impact. So I've mentioned that the fund of strategic initiatives, these are Place, Heritage in Need, Nature Cities and Towns. I'm not going to go into a great detail about those today because they can be quite specific. But there is loads of information. I should say, loads of information online should you want to follow this up further. So we have existing programs and collaborations, and I mentioned partnerships, and this slide lists some of our programs and collaborations with other funders and organisations. This is so we can maximise the use of funding that's available. So we will have get-togethers, so to speak, just to make that money go further and reach a wider target audience. So throughout Heritage 2033, we have 4 guiding investment principles. I don't know if anybody remembers us from previously, if you ever had any contact with us. We had absolutely a ton of thou shalt do this, thou shalt do that. It's a lot more like it's a lot more open now, and hopefully a lot more inclusive. So for those who may have applied before know of our previous strategy, we had 9 outcomes and several priorities. So we simplified it down basically. However, before we had 3 or 4 that you had to hit, and the other were like great to haves. In every application now, we want to see you touch on each of these 4 investment principles in some way or another. So it's a bit of a sliding scale as well, because some projects might be really heavy on saving heritage, but not so much on protecting the environment. But it all has to have elements of each of those 4 in any project that comes forward. So our first investment principle is saving heritage. So this means we ensure heritage is conserved and valued for now and in the future. Considering the saving heritage principle could include things like restoring listed building in urgent need of repair, supporting the recovery of an endangered species or habitat, recording community histories at risk of loss, for example, and digitising heritage materials that are damaged and deteriorated. So you get the feeling that the risk of loss is quite critical to us. It sends people into a bit of a nervous energy syndrome. So if you have that as part of your project, that's really stressed that. Especially say if you're working with the older community, potentially their stories and their histories about, say, a certain subject or event is really important because we could lose that forever. Or it stops in private archives, which is like personal archives of the family. So protecting the environment. Now, a lot of people think they've suddenly start, as part of the project, got to start building raised beds and planting wildflowers. It's not. It is a lot about nature as well, but this as well, protecting the environment is like, do you use local services rather than bringing people from like hundreds of miles away to do the work? Have you got a policy regarding reduce, reuse, recycle? We want to know you're doing your very best you can, that our project, the project that we're supporting you with, is not having a really detrimental impact on the environment. So there's many ways that you can hit that outcome without having to be technically about bees, birds, plants, flowers. Third principle includes inclusion, access, and participation. So by this, we mean supporting greater inclusion, diversity, access, and participation in heritage. It's really important to ensure everyone can be represented and take part in heritage. It's not like you're not focusing on a closed club. You're thinking about everybody in, say, a catchment area, for example, and you're trying to find inroads to get those people who are not included at the moment to become part of that heritage and sharing their heritage or learning about other people's heritage. So, we have supported people like when they're piloting new engagement work to bring in new audiences, training people from underserved backgrounds to help them access volunteer and career opportunities. We've included access and inclusion costs to ensure people don't face barriers to getting involved. For example, covering costs for volunteers from low income backgrounds so they are able to take part. I'm a really great advocate. Is like, if you say, for example, we not many people do books these days, everything's online, but if you do produce a book as part of it, you buy, as part of the project, ISBN numbers, which means there can be catalogued and deposited with the British Museum, so there'll be forever a copy of it available to people. Or you deposit some in the local library or with the local school or the local community centre. So at the end of the day, we understand that some projects need to get an income in for their sustainability, but any profit that comes from that is plowed back into heritage in some form or another as well. So, talking about sustainability, by this we mean strengthening heritage to be adaptive and financially resilient in its contributes to communities and economies. Can mean different things to different organisations, and it depends on what point they are in their journey. But overall, we want to provide organisations with the capacity and expertise to develop their long-term sustainability. That could include training volunteers and staff in skills that the organisation needs to thrive and move forward, developing marketing and communication, and supporting governance reviews. Sometimes, if you've got a chair and, a group of members, looking at that group and saying, what are we missing here? What skills are we missing to help, their skills and abilities to help our charity or project or whatever it may be to carry on and be strong and move forward. And again, things like developing strategic partnerships with other organisations, we've supported people to do that. So we've covered a lot there, but overall the strategy, partnerships, strategic initiatives, and investment principles are all that we're working towards to be in a better position with heritage by 2033. So we won't do questions here if that's okay, unless there's anything really burning, because I'm just trying to gallop through because there's quite a lot to go through, and I'd rather have time at the end for questions. And there's also other facilities that I can direct you towards to get more help and support. We'll talk about those
Yep.
later.
Yeah, folks, please do use the chat if you want to put any questions down.
Yes, please. Yeah, that helps as well, because quite often I know what I'm like. I can get up and walk out this room and forgot what I meant in the next room for. So it's a really good facility to use. So I'll introduce you to some of the grants that we've got available, which are called National Lottery Heritage Grants. So this is our heavily subscribed one, which is our 10,000 to 250,000 pound award bracket. Used to be 3,000 to 10,000 was our first one, but in this day and age, under 10k doesn't go very far at all. So this is aimed towards not-for-profit organisations and the other people you can see on screen. We have the optional project inquiry service where you can sort of put a brief introduction to your project, what you plan to do, how you think you may meet our priorities, the four that I mentioned earlier. And just to get a steer from us, it is optional. You can go straight to a full application, but I would really advise that if you do want to get an idea early on what you want to achieve, that, you know, put that project inquiry form in, because within about 10 working days, depending on how busy we are, but we always try and do it within 10 working days, is we'll get back to you and say, yeah, that's got something in it. Have a think about this, have a think about that. Don't do this. Don't put that in at all. You know, smooth that bit over. It just helps direct you, because you can spend a lot of time applying to us. And sometimes it's a straight out no, and it might be on a technicality. You know, you might have a really brilliant project, but your constitution means you're not allowed to, you won't be able to work with us. So that's something to consider. It's a single stage application, and by that it means it doesn't have to go through several layers of seniority. It goes to one application forum, basically, where we look at all the projects that are around for that week. And then what we do from that point on is, you know, make the decision and get back in touch with you. There's no deadlines. It's what we call a rolling program. So there's no set, you know, if you want to go for it, you've got to be here, submit by a certain time. It's usually within about 8 weeks or so. And I say also because, you know, you could drop the day after, you know, the 8 week thing. But, you know, within 8 to 10 weeks, you should get a decision once the application check's completed. Now, so what might put you back is that if you don't supply all the things that are required, we have to start coming back to you and saying, oh, can you send us this? Can you send us that? And then that'll stop the clock until all that's in place before we can actually go ahead with the decision making and the assessing. It's done by the area team, so you guys will be the East Midlands team who will look at your applications. You can have a project that lasts up to 5 years. 5 years is a long time for £250,000. So think carefully about how long you really want to do it for. But yeah, it can take place in 5 years. There's things like archaeological projects that are seasonal, and so it does take that long. But that's fine, because it becomes moribund, you know, from like September till April the next year, and that's fine. You know, we understand that. That's just an example. There's no minimum match funding, so you don't have to bring any money to the table, but it's always welcomed if it is. Don't forget, if you can demonstrate that people are interested and you've gone out and sought support from somebody else and they've awarded you as well, it shows that there's a need and a want. It helps towards that. So that's quite important as well. And how it works, the payments is in 50% in advance. So once you're awarded, you get 50% up front. Once you get into the end of spending that 50%, you send in all your receipts and everything that you need to. And then you get the next 30%. However, the 20% is paid in arrears. And that is because we were finding we want every project to do an evaluation, say how things went. It's really important to us. And we were finding a lot of people weren't doing it. So now it's like you have to sort of bankroll that 20% in one way or another, and complete your evaluation before we can give you that final award payment. It's sort of a bit of a carrot and a stick to make sure it gets done. So keep that in mind when you're applying, and look at how you can manage that um, a possibility that could cause a problem for you. And you can always talk before you apply, talk to area teams about it as well, and come up with the strategies to cover that. Okay, this is for anybody wanting the big money. $250,000 to 10 million. Ooh. Now that, if you can imagine, if you have to jump through hoops for the under $250,000, we set the hoops on fire for these ones when you're getting up to £10 million. So that just means it's a two-stage process. It's not for profit organisations can apply. There's what we call, if you're awarded, there's a development phase and a delivery phase. So the development phase is like, if you get awarded, you've got 2 years to work up the ideas. So it's shovel ready is a term I keep hearing quite often. So you work hard on that to get it to the point of, when you put in your main application, you're kind of ready to go should you be awarded. So, but before you can apply, you must submit a mandatory expression of interest form. And why it's mandatory is really important. As I say, these things can take a long period of time to write up, and the application form is quite intense. Obviously, because it is public funding, it could potentially be a lot of money, especially when you're getting towards the 10 million mark. Now, the OI is accepted if you can make it, when we realise, and you've made us clear and understood that you're at that point of really developing a full application. And these happen on a quarterly basis. And why you get invited to apply, because it takes so much of your time potentially, that again, we'd rather be there and say, there's 4 different things to the way I look at it. If it's successful, it's a yes, and it could be without support, and that's usually for people like local authorities who've got the staff in house. It's their bread and butter to do this type of thing. It could be yes with support, so we might have to help you polish it up a little bit and take the rough edges off. There's no with support, which means not at the moment, but there's something there and we'll help you. And there's the out and out no, if you know what I mean. That it's not, it doesn't suit our aims and outcomes, and we're not the right funder for you. So once you submit your application, the application check's completed. It's a 12-week assessment period. For that first section, decisions are made by an area committee made up of people external to the organisation. Your development stage lasts up to 2 years, and that's the bit where you're working up your ideas and finalising costs, etc., and activities. And your delivery stage can last up to 5 years. At this price point, so to speak, for want of a better phrase, match funding is required at this level of grant funding, and the match is required per stage. So, for example, 5% at development and 5% at delivery. And if you hit over 5 million in request, it goes to our central board, which is a national thing. So you won't be competing with the Midlands and East. So you'll be competing with projects from throughout the country, just to make you aware of that. Heritage Enterprise grants, I won't go into great detail about these, but these are to support projects who need to they have to produce things like an activity statement. Will fund up to 90% of the conservation deficit of, say, a rebuild. Say if there's a historical factory that wants to be turned into a developer wants to turn it into a business, small businesses facility or something like that. Um, there's what they call a conservation deficit, where the cost to you know, repair the building is a lot more than it's actually worth. So we can do that balancing a little bit, you know, up to 90% of that value. Won't go into too much details about that one because that's a bit heavy. And that's something that you probably want a private conversation with myself or another member of our teams. I'll give you some examples of building projects that we funded, but from our previous awarding criteria, but still sit well with the 2033. So All Saints, they went for £386,000. They did urgent repairs to a Grade 1 listed church. As well as doing the repairs, they held drop-in sessions for older people. So that's the inclusion. Management and maintenance training. So that meant sustainability, because the people within the organisation who were associated with the church in one way or another had the skills to continue on to maintain the project. So we're not throwing money at something that's not being looked after, which we wouldn't do anyway, you know. But it's training people up. It also included schools in STEM sessions, so that's fantastic. Again, another great example of inclusion. The Roundhouse in Birmingham, that was nearly £3 million for the Grade 2 listed building. So it was restored and reopened, and it houses businesses and runs heritage tours and host events. And you can see on that page all the type of activities and things that they did. So including there was a high cost of redeveloping a Victorian building. It's not. It's always more expensive when we have to, you know, work on buildings of an age, because you can't just slop any old mortar in there. You know, it has to be de rigueur of the age. Okay. We won't go through the activity because I don't think there's any need for us to do that. So we are at the point where we can start thinking about any questions at this point. Is there anything, because I've talked a lot, is there anything anybody wants to share or Sean, are there any questions in there for me?
Mark, there haven't really been questions coming through. I think what you're very full in the presentation of the information, obviously.
Oh,
Suzanne, who's at the university, just wanted to mention about some support that she offers at the university. You probably know Suzanne. Suzanne, are you there?
I am indeed. Thank you. Yes, hello everybody.
hello, Susan.
Hello, Mark. I just wanted to
Hello.
let everybody know that we actually have some surgery sessions with the Heritage Fund on the 10th of March. So we've got a couple of Mark's colleagues coming to probably give a similar presentation on Monday, the 10th of March. But we're also offering some surgery sessions. So if you've got just the seed of an idea, or even maybe a slightly more thought out idea, you can book some time with myself and Debbie and Leisha to actually talk over those ideas and receive some support. So what I'll do is I'll put a link in the chat right now where you can book a place to come and join us at Waterside Campus. But my role is actually funded through Heritage Lottery Fund, and I run something called the Heritage Skills Hub, which has a county-wide remit to support heritage organisations and the third sector in terms of developing your skills, but also your kind of make you funder ready to be able to apply to Heritage Lottery Fund for your projects. So we've got a whole range of different training and networking opportunities. We've just done some introductory sessions into archiving. We've got a heritage education fair on Friday. We've obviously got the funder focus. So please do drop me a line if you want to find out more about all of those, because they are funded again through Heritage Lottery Fund, so they're free to attend. And it's very much about everything that I design is about what people need and what people want. So it's very much looking at your skills as an organisation, as third sector organisations, and particularly for your volunteers and the voluntaries, as well. So please do get in touch.
And Suzanne can tell you how fuzzy and lovely we are.
Can indeed.
Absolutely.
And if you do get to go on, you've got Debbie and Alicia, who are fantastic. They are great colleagues. So you've hit gold there if you manage to speak to them.
And longer term as well, if you do have project ideas, even if you can't make the surgery sessions, my role is to support you in developing those projects. So if you just want somebody to have a look over your ideas, have a look at your budget, to just ask some of those challenging questions, those are things that I am doing for other organisations in the county. One being the lab in Northampton. They have been developing their project for quite a while now, and they've been to lots of different training opportunities that we've offered. But I have regular check-ins with them and kind of say, have you thought about this and have you thought about that, and supporting them in finding the right partners or the right training so that they're developing their skills rather than them just bringing in people to do it for them all the time. So please do drop me a line. I'll put my email address in the chat. But thank you very much for letting me explain that.
Yeah, Suzanne, it's like she can spot what you forgot as well. You know what I mean? You might have completely not realised that there's an essential criteria that you've just missed. So having that critical friend who doesn't know your project, is not, neck deep in it all. And if you can give her that and Suzanne understands it and gets it, you're onto a winner. And if it's not quite right, Suzanne, potentially could advise you there where a little bit more work needed, or I don't quite understand what you're trying to say. Because at the end of the day, we need to understand. We're not going to come back and keep asking you 1,000 questions because we haven't got the time, unfortunately, because we get lots of applications constantly. So, it's not within our gift to keep going, man, what did you actually mean by that? It's got to be, when you press that submit button, it's got to be mint, the best you can present it.
Thanks. Thank you. Indeed. Mark, I noticed that there's still some more slides to go. Nicholas said, could he ask a question? So let's go to you, Nicholas, and then we'll go back to Mark to conclude the slides. Nicholas. Not sure where you are. Are you on mute, Nicholas? And that's why we can't hear you.
Oh, Nicholas's mic not be working because his mute's not on. Oh, you're very quiet, Nicholas.
Can you hear me?
Get in there.
Can you hear me or not?
There we go.
Yes.
Bang on. Lovely.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm not on mute, so it might be the signal dropping in and out. Can you hear me now?
Okay. Yep.
Yeah.
Perfect.
So the March 10th event might be for me, but very, very quickly on the reason I've joined it is because Service had lottery grants before, but I wanted to listen about the Heritage Fund because I just wondered whether some of the live stories we do and digital stories where some of our elderly people record their stories and it's kind of that posterity thing, would that fit into any of the categories with the Heritage Fund?
I mean, yeah, it's
you were talking at the beginning, I think, about memories and that.
Yeah, we do a lot of reminiscence projects. I'll give you a very quick example.
Yeah.
I mean, the next things to come, Sean, are all about applying and we can absolutely, it's all online as well. So, but regarding that, Nicholas, I had a fantastic one once. There's a park that had a cafe and it had two main rooms in. And what the little team did who used that area, it was like a coffee morning for families with members who have dementia and other similar illnesses. So what they'd do each week, they'd have a table and they'd throw a load of things in the middle, say, when I was there, it was sports things. So old leather footballs, hockey sticks, this, that, and the other. And they got the people who had dementia and similar things, got them to try and talk, communicate. Just handle sometimes was as much as some people could do. Yeah. And you could see in people's eyes the recognition of, things. But other people, it sort of sparked them into conversation and they capture those memories. Really, really important. And the brilliant thing about it was that their significant other or family member went in the other room and had a coffee and they all chatted together and shared, a real community thing. it's, you know, that's just kind of one of the examples of something that we've supported in the past.
Yeah, I can see some ideas around this because we have a day centre and we also have this memories project, and there might be a way we could not merge but combine the two things together to do something similar to what you're talking about.
There's a place, I think unfortunately it may have closed down. This is all pre-pandemic, and I went, and they had like little fake rooms from the
Yeah.
50s, 60s, 70s,
Yeah.
and they're all bedecked with items from that year and decorated in that way. And it was just for people to reminisce and to talk, and you know. And now this one thing on the wall, which like was a loose tea. It was a loose tea dispenser. And I remember one at my mum's.
I remember them as well.
You know, it's like, oh my gosh,
Yeah.
we had one of them.
Yeah.
It was green. And it was like, you know, it's like, so yeah.
Yeah, okay. Well, that sounds like there might be. I mean, it's a very early and just a thought I've had, but it might be worth me going back and discussing that. So thanks for that. Yeah.
But yeah, defo, if you can make the 10th. If not, get in touch. Just you'll see our contact details at the end,
Yeah.
and mine and the team's contact. If it goes to the teams, then it gets given out to whoever's got the best capacity at that time. So
yeah, that's great.
that might be the best way to get in touch with us.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll tootle on if you
you.
don't mind, folks. No problem, Nicholas. So if I can get this to work, right. So applying to us, it's not as scary as you may think. So we've gone through the grants available, and we think about if you apply to us. So as you can see, I'm not good to read these out. It's daft to read them all out, but you know, it has to have a clear heritage focus, full stop, no back answers. The clue's in our name, we are the Heritage Fund. If you're a musical quartet and you just think if you put heritage after every other sentence, it's going to work, it's not. You know, you really need to have that heritage focus. All our projects need a beginning, a middle, and an end. It can't just keep going on ad infinitum. You know, we want to get it, you know, evaluated at the end, because your evaluation can help somebody else. It helps yourselves for your own learning, for progression, and everything else. And the most important thing is that you do take the 4 investment principles into account to a greater or lesser degree, you know, depending on what type of project that you've got. Excuse me. So here's some of the supporting documents that you'll need. So for below £250,000, your constitution, accounts, project plan and risk register. Now, some people apply to us are like fresh out the water, so to speak. They've got to have a letter then, or evidence that they've got a bank account, or a letter from their bank sometimes, but very rare that happens. And then on the right hand side, you know, we want to see job descriptions and briefs. If you've got any images, say, especially if it's of a building, for example, you know, it's good to see, especially if it's falling to bits, you know, we like to see what's going on. Evidence of support, now that can come in many forms, but if you say you're going to work with a school, we would prefer to have a letter or an email from the school saying, yep, we're on board on this. People throw, oh, we'll work with a local school, but don't forget schools are on a tight turnaround regarding teaching and learning, and they've got their mandatory work that they have to achieve, and whatever you do has got to fit in with them. They can't really change everything to fit in with you, so make sure you've got that buy-in from the head or the principal or whoever you plan to work with. Condition surveys for buildings are important as well. Any agreements, partnership agreements are important. It's just so we know that people have signed up, because if you say you're working in partnership, you don't want blurred lines. You know, we're going to do this, you're going to do that, and you know, so everybody's happy from the get-go. And if you're saying you're having cash contributions, we need evidence thereof. If you cannot provide it at that point in time, should you be awarded, you wouldn't be given permission to start till that evidence is in place. Okay. Right. There's a bit about buildings that I'm not going to go into depth about that because I don't know if anybody's got a building to fix. If there is, bring it up at the end. But that's the type of things that you'll need to provide with your application to us. Now, this is another thing that you can get additional support from us. We have our national webinars, and they last about 2 hours, and you usually have 2 engagement managers like myself, say somebody like Debbie, for example, one of our senior members of the team, and we'll take you through it all, break it all down. Lots of opportunities to ask questions in the chat, which we'll discuss. And yeah, I really enjoy doing them, actually. People seem to get ever such a lot from them. So again, Nicholas, should you not be able to make the 10th of March, if you just look in our web page, go for in your area, click on Midlands and East, and then you'll find the link, this one here, that takes you to where you can sign up for a webinar. I think we're always maxed out. The odd one always drops off, but to a number of 60 people for some reason. I don't know what the reason is, but it's a maximum of 60 people. I think because it's, that's quite a lot as it is in the first place. And then any more than that, we just drown under questions. Access support. This is really important. We know some people need additional support to access our services. So you can request reasonable adjustments and help. So we can schedule phone calls or face-to-face meetings that are convenient to you, provide large print versions of guidance materials, help you upload your application and cover the costs of interpretation, translation services such as BSL, and I've done that in the past. And quite often, if it's going to be a long meeting, there has to be 2 BSL signers because they have to keep swapping between each other because it's quite intensive. So if you go online, this is that application portal. Click on that, and that starts your journey. You just need an email, password, and we'll ask you several questions about your organisation. You only have 1 login for each application, and so we advise it's useful to use an address and password that other people in your organisation can share, because people move on and then they get locked out, and then the organisation's locked out to the account and can't do anything else. So, create a new universal email address and password that you're happy for more than 1 person to know about and share with. So we've covered what and who we fund, our Heritage 2033, our grants, project examples, and applying. These are our contact details. As I say, if you contact Midlands and East, then the work gets sent to the most appropriate person. If you want to name drop me, if you specifically want to speak to me, that's absolutely fine. They'll send it to me. Our telephone numbers are again in your local area section of the website. And there's an absolute ton of guidance and additional support on our website. If you follow us on social media, you get to hear what's going on quicker than most people. So, if there's new initiatives coming up, that's where it should really broadcast first before it gets, publicised in other ways and means. Okay, so I think that's me.